Welcome to Clarity, a podcast powered by the Thomson Reuters Institute. I'm Zach Warren, the Institute's Technology and Innovation Insights lead. In each episode, we dive deep into a single question from decision makers and thought leaders from legal, corporate, tax accounting and audit, and government communities. In today's episode, we discuss the big question: how will generative artificial intelligence impact the future of professional services businesses? The business part is important here because just about everybody is talking GenAI in some form or fashion. But it's one thing to make a shopping list on ChatGPT, it's wholly something separate to apply this new technology directly toward the type of work that makes legal and tax organizations function. But that's where we're going sooner rather than later, with a new Thomson Reuters Institute survey revealing that more than 60% of professionals believe GenAI actively should be used for their daily work. The survey also revealed some more interesting insights, such as the need for more training, that firms and clients aren't really talking GenAI, and that 2025 may be the year of AI in tax. And to explore it all, I'm taking the lead on the interview today, talking with David Wong, Chief Product Officer of Thomson Reuters. Hey there, everybody. This is Zach Warren with the Thomson Reuters Institute, set to go over today's Generative AI report. It's a big report out of TRI that covers everything from usage to sentiment around GenAI to how it's going to impact business in the future. And to talk all things GenAI, I have somebody well versed in the subject. Today I have David Wong with me. How are you doing, David?
Hi, how are you doing? Great, great. Happy to be here. Love the chance to be able to speak with you on this podcast.
Absolutely. And as we get started, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background.
Great. So, as you mentioned, my name is David Wong. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Thomson Reuters. I've been at Thomson Reuters almost 5 years, and so I've been here for this generative AI wave, which has been again hitting the company and our industries. And here at Thomson Reuters, my role is, again, to lead our product, our design, and our content and editorial teams. So we're really at the center of building all the new software and solutions that are taking advantage of this exciting technology. And prior to Thomson Reuters, I was at Facebook and at Nielsen, and I did study engineering, although I never became an engineer. That's why I kind of went into this product design space, but close enough to the technology.
Certainly. So you've seen, even over the past 5 years alone, how generative AI has really ramped up within professional services, including legal, tax, risk, and fraud. I know you've looked over a little bit of the report. What did you find most interesting or perhaps surprising from what you've seen?
Yeah, well, I'm really proud that Thomson Reuters does this work because when we first sort of embarked on this transformation journey with the application of GenAI, we realized we needed to chart what the future of our profession was going to look like. And so this regular study on GenAI and the future professionals, I think, is just so important. And on first glance, when I reviewed the report, it seemed like it was a continuation of previous trends. So I thought, oh, maybe there isn't really that big of a story. But when I looked a little bit deeper, there were some things which really sort of stuck out to me. The first was how rapidly things have changed with tax and accounting and tax professionals. So the story for the first couple of years of the GenAI transformation has been so much on legal. It was all about, oh, legal is going to be disrupted, and legal is going to, going to adopt faster, and legal is going to change their ways of working. And the trend from 24 to 25 is all about tax, actually, it seems. The change in adoption rate, sentiment, the positivity, the optimism from our customers has changed pretty radically, and it's showing up in usage as well. So I think that's one that's really important. I think the second thing that jumps out to me is that we are still, early on in the journey. That adoption still has very far to go. Change management has very far to go. ROI still TBD in many different parts of the industry. And so while we thought we would go quickly from experimentation to implementation, we're still early innings. I think we've started to see implementation, but wild scale adoption, realization of value, true ROI is only showing up in pockets right now, and I think there's far more to go there.
Yeah, that's very astute. And something I got from writing the report as well is that it's good to remember that we're still only a little over 27, 28 months from when ChatGPT went public for the first time. And particularly with the normal pace of change in legal, tax, etc., this is already an accelerated timeline. So I think you'll start to see some of those changes in coming months, coming years. But to your point, it is still very early innings. So, with that said, I kind of want to dive into some of the data. And you mentioned sentiment and the positivity around this. And I did find that very interesting, where people are really excited about this. One of the questions we ask is, should Gen AI be applied to industry work? And what we found is not only do they see the use case, but more than half said, yes, this actively should be applied to our work. And as you noted about tax, that's where we really saw a jump year over year from 52% of those in tax firms said that it should be applied to tax work last year. That rose to 71% in 2025, which is a very large leap in those seeing the use case. So I'm kind of curious from your standpoint, does that jive with what you're hearing from the industry, more positivity surrounding Gen AI?
I think in general, yes, but it is a bit counterintuitive. I think that the pundits might think, or have been saying that, we're starting to enter the sort of trough of disillusionment, the typical sort of adoption curves of technology, but the the results seem to suggest that we're not close to that yet. Um, and I think it's a good thing. It means that uh, our customers and users of Gen AI technology are still seeing value in it, that it isn't just hype. Uh, and I think that is true in our industries. I think a lot of the hype that's out there has been in uh, sort of the broader professional space, those which are not within tax accounting or some of the industries that we serve. And so I think it's much more of a story that our industries, the domains we serve, are still seeing value in the technology. I think the other trend, which could be potentially explaining this, and why I think we're seeing that positivity and also usage start to show up for tax and accounting, is the shift away from just information driven use cases for Gen AI to much more workflow driven use cases. And I call it that because if I use the word agentic, everyone kind of, that's like a little bit too buzzwordy. But agentic in many cases just means teaching the AI system to use tools and to be able to solve problems which require multiple steps, which usually means workflows. And I think we've seen in the past year many more examples of products and solutions which can start to do more complex step-by-step workflows and to help to automate process, which is more common within tax, accounting, audit, corporate tax. And because we see those use cases, those demos, those products, I think it's starting to give people confidence. If you look back, I mean, the sentiment from tax and accounting professionals was more of a, I don't know yet. I haven't seen anything, right? I haven't seen, use cases or proof points. I think now this year they're starting to see it, and now I want to try it. I want to adopt it. I want to give it a shot, and we'll see how that goes over the next few months and quarters.
Yeah, to that end, I did find that very interesting in the report as well, where 41% said that they're using open source tools right now. Only 9% said that they were using those industry specific tools, like you were talking about, some of those workflow tools in tax, but an additional 37% were either in the planning or consideration phase. So maybe for some, when they hear generative AI, they think ChatGPT. What's the difference between those open source tools and maybe some of more workflow tools like you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I would say I wouldn't necessarily classify them as open source, but just
Fair.
general purpose.
General purpose.
So,
Good call.
like a ChatGPT is an open source.
Yeah, fair.
But I think the difference is that a ChatGPT or a Gemini or, a DeepSeek or some of those general purpose tools they're trying to be a jack of all trades and try to do everything and anything. And that might be fine if you're just trying to create, a shopping list or to, uh, help organize your house or something like that. Uh, but once you actually want to do real professional work where there's consequences and you need to have citable information, that you need to make sure that you have uh, solid analysis that's based in fact and the latest law or whatever regulation you're working within, you generally need to go to something which has data behind it, which has been validated and that is reliable for that use case. And often you need to have tools that have been designed by experts, so either refined, trained, or just designed so that it matches the workflow. Uh, a simple example: document review. There's tons of document review that that is done in tax, accounting, and legal. In theory, you could use ChatGPT. You could say, "Hey, here's a document. Read it. Answer these questions." But there is so much nuance in document review. The way that you read a document, the types of things you're looking for, the way that you would analyze risk would be different if you're reading a contract for the purpose of a financial audit versus reading a contract for the purpose of a negotiation. And that's just one example of how a purpose-built tool like what Thomson Reuters builds for auditors or for legal professionals differs from a horizontal tool like a ChatGPT, which is trying to build for everyone and anyone, and often doesn't have an interface or doesn't have tuning or hasn't been tied to knowledge sources to be able to answer questions which you ultimately would need to for a professional use case.
Certainly. And what we've seen over the past year is gains in overall organizational usage. One of the questions we ask is generative AI being applied across your entire organization? And what we found, that has risen from 12% in 2024 to 2020, that has risen from 12% in 2024 to 22% this past year. But that's maybe not necessarily the growth rate we would have expected from when we looked last year, how many people said that they were actively planning for it. So what that tells me is maybe adoption is a little bit tougher, or maybe adoption isn't going as quickly as some anticipated. Do you think that's necessarily the case, or what are some of the barriers you've seen, and how can they be overcome with Gen AI adoption?
I think when someone answers a question of are they going to plan to use something, I think it usually means we're going to give it a try. And so I'm not too surprised by the results. I mean, what you've described is basically a doubling of adoption, from 24 to 25, which, is actually quite rapid. It's very, uh, there are a few technologies which have been adopted with that rate, in particularly within professional services. So going from 12 to 20% or so is pretty rapid adoption. But you're right. There's absolutely barriers which are preventing that to go even faster. Uh, I think a few themes which show up both in the report and that we see from the marketplace is um, uh, one, frankly, just change management and training. So uh, while the leader or the managing partner of a firm might have intentions to be able to adopt it across every practice area, not every practice area has the openness, or the willingness, or the skills uh, uh, to be able to manage that change. And so I think that's one thing which we're certainly seeing, that uh, there is now, I think, a bit of a labor crunch for Gen AI practitioners and those that know how to use the tools. It's probably like the most in-demand job you can have now across professional services, which is, can you help uh, a firm to be able to utilize and implement these types of tools to be able to manage the change? So I think that's one thing that's holding things back. I think another reason is capability. So there are sky high expectations. You see a demo and you're like, wow, the latest models must be able to, complete the audit or finish the tax return or write the contract. And then you realize when you actually use them, nope, they assist, they can augment in the process, but um, we're still a ways away from complete end-to-end automation for some of those really tough tasks. And so I think the mismatch of expectation and reality is also holding people back. Um, I don't think that mismatch means that the AI tools don't have value. I think it's about expectation management, and the hype is very high. I have sat through many startup pitches as part of my role with Inventures, where there are some pretty wild claims that are made about what the technology is claimed to do in some products. I actually am quite a believer that we'll eventually get there. It's just that today we might not be there. So that's another factor I think that's there.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. It's whenever I talk with people, I'm one of those that say, go ahead and try something, have familiarity with it, but that also helps you understand what it can and can't do. Because to your point, I think people sometimes hear, oh, AI, robot lawyer, robot tax professional. And that's not what it is. It's designed to help you do a specific task. So, especially with your point, adding on about training as well, the report said only about 31% have received active training around generative AI, which is an increase, but still represents less than a third of all professionals, which means that there is kind of a lot of growth across the board to implementation for this stuff. So I wanted to ask you as well about just kind of the interplay between firms and corporates, because one of my main takeaways from this report is the fact that those two sides don't really seem to be talking about generative AI that much. We found that 57% of corporate respondents actively want their firms to be using Gen AI, but more than half of law firm customers and more than half of tax firm customers have no idea whether their outside firms are using Gen AI or not. So I'm curious for your standpoint as well. A, do you think those conversations should be happening? And B, if so, how to get started on talking about Gen AI?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of different ways that I think GenAI shows up in the relationship between um, uh, client and provider. Uh, in one way, I don't think it actually needs to show up at all, which is in the assurance that good work is being done. And what I mean by that is when you ask a lawyer for advice or for research on a topic, you're generally not specifying the technologies that they use to do research or to get answers, right? You are generally just trying to focus on the outcome, which is it a complete, thoughtful, strategic uh, answer to the issue or the matter that I have at hand? And you kind of externalize the, the choice of techniques and methods and research to the, the lawyer. But you do want them to use the best possible technologies, right? I mean, that's frankly part of the professional obligation. And so, in that respect, I don't think that needs to be kind of specified between the client and um, uh, uh, the client and the provider. Whether you use uh, a book in a library versus a generative AI tool, I think the the client is demanding that the work is done correctly, completely, accurately, etc. That being said, you're probably going to get a better answer if you use a generative AI tool versus just books in the library because you can be more complete and you'll be faster. So I think that's one. That being said, I think that many firms are starting to look at ways to be able to use Gen AI in the provision of services. So often, like the way that you interact with a professional will be by email or over phone or things like that. You have to. It's very difficult to get the time. That time is billed, etc. And do you want that build time to be on simple clarifications or on routine back and forth? Are there ways that Gen AI could be used to be able to enhance client service? And I think those are some interesting ways which are starting to show up. And we've worked with some firms that are experimenting with augmentations to client portals or changes in the way that knowledge that is unique to the firm is provisioned to clients. And I think that's a new and interesting way. I think the other way that it is showing up, and this is a source of a lot of debate, is in the expectation of greater efficiency. So I don't know if corporate customers are going to be that willing to spend on hourly rates for document review for transactional work, just like how discovery work has been transformed with e-discovery tools over the past decades. And so I think you'll probably see a shift where transactional work will start to change its billing model, to change away from hourly rates for certain type of tasks, because it can be done more efficiently with technology. And there will be, I think, classes of work product which will probably get shifted towards more of a fixed fee rate as a result as well. So a few ways. And that's more on the legal side. I think on tax, it could be very different, actually. Um, with some of the agentic technology that's being developed, you might not know whether a human or a machine is preparing your taxes. And I don't know if it really matters as long as it's been signed off by an experienced professional. I think we're starting to see a few examples like that where uh, you might be interacting much more with an AI system as a client of an accountant or a tax preparer, and that might be great actually, because the number of times I've been finalizing documents for my taxes at 1 a.m. on some random night, I'm sure my accountant would much rather that an agent or a bot take care of that instead of having to respond to a late night email. So,
Yep. 100%. Yeah, and I was at the Tax Executives Institute conference about a month or so ago, and that was the number one thing that popped up with respect to AI is we have a talent crunch as it is. We can't get enough accountants in the door right now. So we welcome anything that helps us do our jobs more efficiently, and because we just don't have enough people to do all of the work that we have right now. So that definitely resonates with me in terms of tax really embracing what this could bring.
yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, tax professionals have been looking at technology for efficiency for, again, years and years. Gen AI is just the next, iteration. Instead of an app and a portal, you might work with an agent or, a digital assistant. As long as it's more effective and it gets the outcome that a client wants, I think that it will likely get adopted.
Certainly. And we're getting near the end of our conversation here, but I just wanted to look forward a little bit because one of my personal favorite numbers from the report is that 95% expect Gen AI to be a central part of their organization's workflow within the next 5 years. Now, that's going to happen progressively over that timeline. It's very few have it right now as a central part of workflow, but most people anticipate that it's coming. So I'm curious from your standpoint, should people expect Gen AI as a central part of their workflow within the next, call it 5 years? And really, where does the professional services market go from here with respect to Gen AI?
It certainly rings true to me, mostly because I think that there are so many routine, mundane, rote things which Gen AI has an opportunity to be able to improve, to automate, to take off our plates. And professional work is replete with those types of tasks. And so I don't think that 95% means that 95% of the work will be done by Gen AI, right? It just means that it will become pervasive. And just in the same way that a smartphone is pervasive, or email is pervasive, or instant messaging is pervasive, I think the thing to navigate in the next 5 years is that winnowing of use cases and problems which Gen AI is well suited to. And that's going to be, I think, a combination of work that professionals do and that software and technology companies like Thomson Reuters will do. And it's going to be this interesting marriage where we will experiment as TR and companies like TR to create new products, new services, and to really experiment with what AI can do. And in partnership with professionals, we'll figure out whether or not it works in practice. If you get real ROI, if it can safely be put into place, you can get a new workflow in the way that professional work is done. And we'll have successes and failures along the way. I no doubt that we're going to have failed experiments, or we're going to have wildly successful experiments. But that's going to be the interesting thing that will happen in the next 5 years, that winnowing of use cases. And I think we'll look back having a conversation like this in 5 years and be like, wow, can you believe we did things that way, right? It'll probably feel obvious by then that, this, of course, and AI systems are used for this type of use case and that. But we'll forget that it'll be done through sort of like hard fought iteration and experimentation to get to what will then feel very obvious for the use of AI.
Certainly. As you mentioned, early innings, but definitely an inflection point, and definitely a lot of change to be happening in a very short time here coming forward for professional services. Well, I think that's about all the time we have today, but thank you very much for joining me, David. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fantastic to speak with you.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank David for chatting with me, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I think something he said near the end really stuck out to me. It's not that GenAI is going to be doing 95% of what all professionals do, but it's that GenAI will be so pervasive that nearly all professionals will encounter it somewhere. That means that even if it's early innings, as David noted, the time to begin immersing yourself on what GenAI means for you is here. Thank you, as always, for joining us for Clarity, powered by the Thomson Reuters Institute. You can follow or subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and don't forget to share with your colleagues and leave a 5-star review. For more data-driven analysis of today's professional services market and in-depth conversations with industry thought leaders, please visit us online at thomsonreuters.com/institute. Follow us on LinkedIn under the Thomson Reuters Institute. Clarity is a production of Thomson Reuters, copyright Thomson Reuters 2025.